मम ज्ञानातिमिनन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकाय चक्षुर्मिलितं तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। Jai Shri Gurudev, Jai Shri Vaishnava Vrinda. So here we are gathered for our Thursday online Sangha, and I'm on the road again, just traveled from, as I mentioned, Navadvip to Mayapur, and just landed in time for our meeting today. And we're thinking to go through some verses of chapter 3 of Shri Prapanna-jīvanāmṛtam. This section, Anukulyasya Sankalpa, acceptance of the favorable. And this is part of the Sri Bhakta Vachanamritam section, words of nectar from the devotees. Because later in the book, there's words directly from the Supreme Lord. Bhagavad Vachanamritam, I think it is called. So in one of the final chapters, there's words directly from the Lord, collected from the scriptures. But then the earlier chapters of the book, yes, Sri Bhagavad Vachanamritam. That's coming to the end of the book. But then earlier chapters are collected expressions of the Vaishnavas, Bhakta Vachanamritam, words of nectar from the devotees. So this is the first limb of surrender that is discussed in Prapanna-jīvanāmṛtam. There's different orders that are given, right? Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his analysis of the 6 limbs of surrender, he begins with humility, with doinya. But Srila Sridhar Maharaj begins with this, and this is also the conventional way that's given in the scriptures, acceptance of the favorable. Okay, so we can have some reading here. And so the way Srila Sridhar Maharaj presents these chapters is he always has the first verse, which is his own writing, which is summarizing the principle that is being discussed in the chapter. And then in the following verses, he's citing verses from different places with his own unique illumination, drawing out the essence of that verse. Okay, I'm not that. My connection's actually very poor here. So I've just joined on my phone directly, which I think should be better. A little better anyway. My apologies about that. Okay. Actually, I remember now, I think we started discussing this verse a few weeks ago with Suvasini Didi. This word sankalpa, some of you may remember, we were discussing this point that, it doesn't quite translate, it doesn't translate well into English, but this word sankalpa, it's translated here as just an acceptance. But in Sanskrit, it's actually, the word carries a lot more weight. It means more like almost like a vow, I remember we discussed it with Ganga Leela. She came up with a good word. I don't remember what it was. But it's like a strong affirmation, right? That you were going to do something, right? Almost a vow, could say, perhaps not as strong as a vow, but along those lines. So that's what's actually being expressed here, this very firm conviction that you will do whatever is favorable. Oh,
Resolve was the word.
resolve, yeah, resolve. Yeah, that was it. That was it, resolve. That's it. Okay. All right. Trying to work out the logistics here. Okay. Okay, yes, that's right. A resolve. It's like a firm resolve to do something. And so that's what's being expressed here, that we shall do whatever is favorable. Is my screen okay? I'm the right side up? No, it looks weird, huh? Okay. Is that okay? Yeah, okay. Um, okay. So now moving on to verse number 2. What is the number one thing that is given here? And this is tied in, right, with what is discussed and mentioned in so many scriptures. Harinam Sankirtan, right? This is the Yuga Dharma. This is the religion of this age, of Kali Yuga. And so this has been meant, this is what Mahaprabhu came to give. This is the great gift of this age. And so this has been cited as the very first principle when it comes to discussing what is favorable, what is most favorable to the advancement of our devotional life. Sri Krishna Sankirtanam eva tat parashritanam paramanukulam. Of everything favorable, Hari Sankirtan, performed by souls surrendered unto the lotus feet of Lord Hari, is paramount. Of everything favorable, Hari Sankirtan, performed by souls surrendered unto the lotus feet of Lord Hari, is paramount. Paramanukulam, this is supremely favorable. And then this verse, many of you know, this is also the very first verse of the Shikshashtakam, right? Mahaprabhu's 8 instructions, which he gave for the benefit of us all. And this is one thing which I appreciate about Prapanna-jīvanāmṛtam, because Prapanna-jīvanāmṛtam, it's a treatise on the subject of surrender, right? And of course, so many wonderful verses. And so in that sense, it's such a glorious text. But from another perspective, it's like this wonderful collection of many different texts. So for example, the Shikshashtakam, almost all, maybe all the verses of Shikshashtakam are included in here in different sections, in different places. But I think they're all here, if not all of them, most of them. Also, many of the verses of Upadeshamrita, Rupa Goswami's text, which we're going through on Saturdays, those are also included here. So many of those verses are included here. So there's so much, like in so many ways, there's so many layers to Prapanna-jīvanāmṛtam. It's almost like a very helpful reference book, like a shloka reference book. And there's also very helpful index at the end. So yes, highly recommended for all Vaishnavas to have this book. If you don't have a copy, Well, of course, you can get a PDF. If you don't have a physical copy, they do have them in London. So yeah, that's highly recommended. Okay, so here we are, very first verse of Shikshashtakam, which is so important for us, so valuable for us. Cheto darpanamarjanam bhavamaha devagni nirvapanam shreya kairava chandrika vitaranam vidyavadu jivanam anandam buddhivardhanam pratipadam purnamrita svadanam sarvatma snapanam param vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtan. May the Shri Krishna Sankirtan be all victorious in its pristine glory. This congregational chanting of the holy names of the Lord cleanses the looking glass of consciousness, extinguishes the raging forest fire of material existence, and spreads the benediction moon rays that cause the lotus of the heart to bloom. This chanting is the life and soul of divine consorthood, expanding the ocean of pure ecstasy. It is the flavor of full nectar at every moment, bathing and cooling the entire self. And this is spoken by the Supreme Lord Sri Chaitanya Chandra himself. And someone may ask, well, hang on, we were told this section is Bhakta Vachanamrita, words of nectar from the devotees. So why is Mahaprabhu's words here? And that's simply Srila Sridhar Maharaj chose to put Mahaprabhu's verses here because he is the Lord, but he's in the mood of a devotee. And so for that reason, they have been included here. And this verse is so wonderful. I mean, we could spend a few hours just discussing this verse. It's, there's so much here, so much here. And in the Golden Volcano, many of you will be familiar with that book, right? One of our core texts coming from Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And the second half, for those who haven't gotten around to reading it yet, the second half of that book, Golden Volcano, is a collection of Srila Sridhar Maharaj's talks on the Shikshashtakam verses. And those explanations are so precious for us. Our Gurudev was so happy about that publication. And he made some comment, that if Goswami Maharaj hadn't published anything else, if he'd only published those explanations of the Shikshashtakam, that would be sufficient, that would be complete, because they're so full and so valuable for us. And so there's a very nice explanation of Sri. And I don't know if we want to go through word by word here. Maybe not, so we can keep some view of this section as a whole. But in a simple sense, right? It is emphasizing the glories of Harinam, the power of Harinam. What will be the results, right, of one who is sincerely chanting the holy name? That is being discussed here. What are the different stages of development? Because that's something that is, a part of Shikshashtakam. There's that aspect of a gradation being described, different stages of advancement, of progress that are being described. And that's being summarized in this first verse, and then you could say elaborated upon in the following verses. And so in the beginning, Cheto Darpanamarjanam, first is the stage of purification, right? That wonderful analogy, cleaning the mirror of the consciousness. Then Vava Mahadevagni Nirvapanam, liberation from the material environment. And then on that clean platform, then higher and higher stages of joy and love and relationship with the Lord. So this is the glory of Sri Harinam Sankirtan, Krishna Kirtan. Param Vijayate, Sri Krishna Sankirtan. This is a favorite expression, that very last phrase, it's a favorite expression of many Vaishnavas, very rousing expression. May that Krishna Sankirtan, Param-jīvanāmṛtam, may it be supremely victorious. May it override everything in this world. May it reign supreme in this dark age of Kali Yuga, this age of quarrel and conflict and so many things. Let this very bright, glorious wave of kirtan, uplifting wave of Sankirtan, may that be glorious. May that be victorious overall. May it be victorious over us. May it conquer us. May it conquer the world, right? This is the movement of our gurus. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, our Gurudev, Srila Govinda Maharaj, Srila Swami Maharaj, Prabhupada, Srila Sridhar Maharaj. This was their mission. This is the end that they were working towards. That this sweet wave, Harinam, it can rule over all, can conquer all, conquer the hearts of all, conquer the world. They were working towards that. So, Param-jīvanāmṛtam, Sri Krishna said. So, you could also say, right, that in this chapter, there's one way of analyzing is that there's like a more general overview and then a general appreciation and moving into more refined concepts, right? So the first thing that's mentioned here, right, is Harinam, Kirtan, Sankirtan. This is the most favorable thing. This is the number one project. We can get everything through that. But then in the following verses, it's being explored. Okay, Kirtan is everything, but then how can we really access the wealth of Kirtan? Is it just a matter of making some sounds with our tongue, right? Is it just a matter of chanting so many rounds of japa, counting with our fingers, right? Is it as simple as that, right? No, it is not as simple as that. And so this is what's being discussed, right? We understand the general, like if a general is making a war plan, right? There's the general objective. Yes, we want to win the war, but then there's so many little details, right? It's not like you just rush in, yeah, we're going to win the war, we're going to fight you hard, but there's so many details, right? So in the same way, the broad idea is we can get everything through Harinam. But how will we chant, right? In what way will we chant? With what mood of heart, what feeling of heart? How will we carry ourselves, right, in our daily lives? What will our practice be like, right? There are many details, right? It is not just a sound vibration that we're making, and then we'll get everything from that. And so then what is the next verse? Many of you could guess that, and that is the verse that our Gurudev, Srila Govinda Maharaj, was always emphasizing, right? This Trinada pi sunichena, Tadoriva sahishnuna, Amanina manadena kirtaniya sarah. How will we carry our heart? How will we relate with our environment? How can we make our heart fertile so that the holy name is attracted to manifest there? How can we plant the seeds of the holy name in the soil of our heart? How will we adjust our heart? That is what is being described in this verse. Through these principles, living these principles of humility, tolerance, giving honor to all, and expecting none in return. These are very, very powerful, subtle, but very, very powerful principles. And so Srila Sridhar Maharaj's illumination, Tatra Sampati Chatushtayam Paramanukulam. These four jewels are accepted as the greatest treasure favorable to the performance of Hari Kirtan. One who knows himself more insignificant than a blade of grass, who is as forbearing as a tree, and who gives due honor to others without desiring it for himself, is qualified to sing the glories of Lord Hari constantly. I've been thinking actually these last couple of days, how there are 2 points which are like laws in Vaishnavism, which can be very difficult to practice for some, but are very, very important if we want to maintain our place in Vaishnavism. And one of those is that we cannot criticize others, right? Of course, confidentially, we may discuss certain things with our friends, but to publicly criticize or to maintain this like ill feeling, inimical feeling in our hearts towards Vaishnavas, that is one very, very important principle, right? In other words, not to commit Vaishnava aparadh. That is one very, very important point in Vaishnavism. And then the second point, which is also very important, but also can be very difficult, is not to assert ourselves, not to assert our own ego, right? Of course, we may need to assert ourselves in different situations, but if it's for the purpose of establishing our own ego, for our own self-promotion, that is not allowed in Vaishnavism. This is like a rule in Vaishnavism. Sometimes I remember one expression of Srila Sridhar Maharaj where he says, under no circumstances can we work towards establishing our own prestige. Under no circumstance. And so these are important principles, but there are things that can be difficult, right? And I've been thinking about these points because of some things I've come against. It can be difficult when you face negativity from others, especially your own God family, right? You expect to be, encouraging and supportive, right? And so sometimes when you encounter different types of negativity, you have this temptation comes, right? One, to criticize them, and the other, to try to promote your own self, right? That, no, you don't know, who I am, what I am, I'm this, right? To try to assert your own position or your own quality, that temptation comes, right? And it can be difficult, but we have to, that these are like laws in Vaishnavism. And if we cannot follow those laws, then we will have to lose some grace, right? We have to lose some grace. Because within that mood of wanting to, assert ourselves, first of all, there's a lack of faith, right? That the Lord is taking care, that the Lord is in control, that the Lord is dealing with us and dealing with others as we need to be dealt with, right? So if someone needs to be corrected, that will be so. If someone needs to be humbled, or if someone needs to be encouraged, that will be so, right? And if something is wrong with the environment, the Lord will adjust that, right? Of course, sometimes some wrong must happen because we are in that world. We are in the wrongful environment. We are in the wrongful world. We are in the world of wrong, right? And we're in a world where there's so much karmic stuff that's just playing out, right? So because of that, at different times we have to face things sometimes. But the Lord, if He wants to intervene, He can. And if He wants to correct some situation, He can. So we have to have some faith in that. We have to have faith in that. And we also have to maintain a humble demeanor, right? And one way we can do that is by staying connected with the substance. If we're really connected with the substance of Krishna consciousness, if we're really tasting some real juice in Krishna consciousness, we won't care for all these things, right? We will be situated on a deeper plane, and we can maintain our Vaishnava mood of ego. So, but yes, it's occurring to me. I was thinking about this point, these last couple of days, and now I'm looking at this verse again, right? Of course, everyone knows this verse, but I'm looking at it in a fresh way and seeing that this verse is actually regulating these tendencies that we have. this verse is regulating that and helping us to not to act on the instinct of our false ego. Try to stay closer to our nature as soul and as servitors. Our Gurudev mentioned that too, that this verse is protecting us from Vaishnava Aparad. He also mentioned that. So this verse is very helpful, very important. One who knows himself more insignificant than a blade of grass, who is as forbearing as a tree, and who gives due honor to others without desiring for himself, is qualified to sing the glories of Lord be constant. And this is the third verse of the Shikshashtakam. The previous verse is the first verse of Shikshashtakam. And now this verse is the third verse of the Shikshashtakam. Also the third verse of this chapter. So this verse is very, very fundamental to our practice of Vaishnavism. If we don't know, we don't have so many shlokas memorized, right? It's okay if we don't know so much, if we don't understand so much. It's okay if we cannot practice so well, right? If we have many faults in our practice, we may struggle in different ways with the practice, with the regulations. Those things are all forgivable, right? Those things are all forgivable. But this is not. If we leave these principles, that will bring us to more, to real danger in our spiritual life. So these qualities represent more intrinsically, right? What it means to be a Vaishnava. Like for example, there are some devotees who will emphasize the 4 regulative principles, right? No meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling, right? There are some who will emphasize those things, and there are some who will see those things as defining what it means to be a Vaishnava, right? That if you avoid all these things, that makes you a Vaishnava. But our Gurudev's comment on that, he said, these are actually human principles. Like following all these things, that helps you to be like a normal human being. Like that's just like the basis. He said, but they're not Vaishnava principles, right? Not doing this, not doing that, that's not Vaishnavism. Though these principles are on the negative side, not doing this, not doing that. And those just bring you to the standard of being a human. They're not Vaishnava principles. But these qualities that Mahaprabhu is describing in this third verse, these are Vaishnava. These are things that will help us to become Vaishnava. The more humble we can be, the more tolerant, and so on. These are Vaishnava principles. They are the real determiners of what is the degree of our Vaishnavata, of our Vaishnava quality. And so from that perspective, when we face different challenges that challenge these principles in our lives, our attempts to practice them, we actually have to see that as an opportunity, right? As a privilege, an opportunity for us to practice these things, right? There was one letter I saw that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wrote to one of his disciples, and someone had written to him from one of the temples and was describing how someone in the temple was giving a very difficult time, and he was disturbed, complaining about this, and Srila Saraswati Thakur wrote back and said, if Krishna has given you the opportunity to tolerate, then you must tolerate. Let's take that opportunity. And so from that perspective, it's like an exam, in a school or university, you may be given a written exam, but we also have exams in our spiritual life,
right? You know, how you respond to, the only problem is we're not given warning, right? Like a pop quiz, they call it in America. Pop quiz, on the spot, no planning, no preparation, no warning, but real life, you know, in the moment, on the spot, pop quiz. And so, but it's actually a mark of honor, you know, that we are able to, we're ready. Krishna's giving us that situation because we're ready for that, right? We also have to remember that. Doth God, what was that expression of John Milton, Srila Sridhar's life? You know, doth God day labor give, light deny? He has Milton, the British poet, Christian poet. He has this line: doth God day labor give, light deny? Meaning that, will God give you a task that he won't also give you the capacity to fulfill? Right? Because actually Milton, what happened was he was working on this important text, you know, he was working on Paradise Lost and perhaps something else, but he started to lose his eyesight. So he was having a difficult time, and he felt he's doing this work as an offering, as a service to God and to the servants of God. But then he started to go blind, and so he was struggling to finish this important work. And so he had this moment, you know, of intense prayer, you know, like, how can I continue? But he came to that realization, like, God has given me some work to do. He will also give me the capacity. He won't give me something to do without giving me the ability to do it. And so a great degree of faith is required for us to really be able to practice and apply these things in our daily lives. And the more we can reciprocate with the world of faith, the more faith will be extended to us. Faith is a gift, actually. Faith is a gift from above. And so the more that we try to align ourselves with the world of faith, the more faith will be gifted to us. We will be given the gift of more faith. And so we have to see these moments as a great opportunity. But, you know, at least for myself, because I'm not a Vaishnava, I'm just a practicing Vaishnava. I'm just sharing, you know, like, for me, in my head, like, I like to tell myself, these are laws. These are Vaishnava laws, like that you have to tolerate, you know, that you cannot criticize, that you cannot assert your own ego. Just like in this world, there are laws. And if you break the law, then you have to pay the penalty, right? And so in my head, because I'm a conditioned soul, it helps me to think like that. You know, these are Vaishnava laws. And if we can follow these laws, we will be benefited. And if we break them, then we will also have to experience the result of that, right? Of course, you know, this is a very basic beginner way of looking at it, because from a higher level, these are all very natural things, you know, like these instructions are for complete neophytes. It's almost like, sometimes I think of it as like, you know, like a teacher telling their students, be nice to each other, please. Don't fight among yourselves. Like, you know, like our guru shouldn't have to tell us these things. You know, these are actually just normal things. But that's where we are, because we're human, right? We're human. And we're also navigating the difficult worlds, which often presents much negativity, right? So yeah, anyhow, in my head, it helps to think of it like that. Like, these are Vaishnava laws. Somebody is criticizing you, it's okay. Just let it go. And we try to dive deep into the nectar ourselves and take faith in the Lord and his connection and his grace. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next verse. And this verse we actually went through not long ago in Upadeshamrita. This is one of the verses of Upadeshamrita, right? The nectar of instruction from Srila Rupa Goswami. Harshnanam adhikana, wait. Harshnanam adhikaran nurupa sevaiva bhajananukula. To render service to the devotees according to their respective qualifications is conducive to pure devotion. Krishneti yasya giritam manasa dhyeta dikshasti chetpanati vischa bhajantam isham shushushaya bhajana vigyam ananyam anya nindadi shunya hridam ipsita sangha labdya. And so now, what we see in some cases in Prapanna-jīvanāmṛtam is that Srila Sridhar Maharaj, if there is a commentary that has been given by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Saraswati Thakur, then instead of giving his own direct translation, Srila Sridhar Maharaj is giving the explanation that was given by his gurus. And so there's not actually a direct translation of this verse here, but instead there's this expanded Bengali explanation, which is in the style of a song. And this is by Srila Saraswati Thakur. This is like a type of style that we see in Vaishnava writings. And our Gurudev, from what I've seen, he likes this style. Where there will be like an expanded, like sometimes when like rendering Sanskrit verses into Bengali, instead of giving like a direct word for word literal translation, there's a convention to instead give this like expanded verse in the style of like a song, expanding, like not just giving a direct translation of the verse, but also elaborating on the meaning, going deeper into the meaning of the verse. And so that's what we're seeing here. And so this is Saraswati Thakur's Bengali verse translation, which is actually, like a song. Krishna Saha Krishna Nama Vinajaniya Prakrita Kamacha Sanananiya Jainam Loe Name Dikshita Hoya Ada Karibe Mane Swagoshi Nyaniya. I'm going to go ahead to the English here. Knowing Krishna and his name to be identical truth, one embraces exclusively the holy name's path, and thus who is initiated into chanting the name properly should be mentally respected as a member of the family. So this verse, right, it's discussing this point, right, that how we don't treat everyone indiscriminately, in the same way. But we try to honor the Vaishnavas in a more refined way, right? With particular attention according to their own advance, right? So we will give more honor, more attention, more service to those who are on a more elevated platform. And we will also give honor to those who are at a more beginner level. But for their own sake, as well as our own, we will not go too far with that. In some cases, it may be mental respect. So the basic principle of Vaishnavism is to appreciate, respect everyone, right? Everyone is to be respected. And why, you could say, what about a terrible person, who's been locked away because of terrible crimes? Yes, they may be showing themselves in this terrible way, but they also have God in their heart. So the potential is there. So sometimes we may not be able to respect anyone on the basis of their current nature, but we can at least respect the potential for good. The fact that God is in their heart, and they also have that gift of being an eternal servitor of the Lord. That is also their own property. It may not be revealed, but it is there. It is in a hidden form, right? So that that may be the only way we can respect people, but they are also respectable in that sense, right? So some level of mental respect, we may have that. So here it's saying that, one who is taking shelter of the Lord, his devotees, they're in a very beginner level. We will mentally respect them. We may not show them so much formal respect, that will not be so good for them or us, but we still give them some level of respect. And he who serves Krishna by constant worship of the name within his heart, ever residing at Sri Vrindavan Dham, know him an intermediate devotee, make obeisance at his feet, and keep him as a faithful friend in your thought and deed. So this is now describing a Madhyam Adhikar Vaishnava, right? Middle class, more advanced Vaishnava. We will show more formal respect for them, keep friendship with them, honor them in more of an active way. And who by internal service to the name knows his divine identity, sees Krishna, only Krishna, in every form and entity, seeing nothing separate from Krishna in the entire creation. He sees all souls equally serving Krishna's predilection. No such a veteran votary, most honored and most cherished, serve him in thought, word, and deed, with heart's fulfillment relished. With obeisance, inquiry, service, him in all respects entreat. By the grace of such a great soul, we can reach Lord Krishna's feet. So this is describing Uttam Adhikar, right? Highest level Vaishnava, who is on this very high platform of seeing Krishna everywhere, and seeing everyone in connection with their relation, seeing everyone in the light of their relationship with Krishna. This very high view. This type of Vaishnava we should fully surrender to and take, surrender to their advice and to their service in all ways. This it's interesting, I think of this sometimes. If you look at the original Sanskrit verse, what it literally says, Nindadi Shunya Kridam, that what it means is that Kridam in their heart, there's no tendency to ninda means criticize. Shunya, void. There's no tendency to criticize. That is how it is actually mentioned in the Sanskrit. I find that very powerful. Within their hearts is absent this tendency to criticize. So this is one of the like hallmark qualities of the highest level of Vaishnava. They're not seeing bad, right? And there's that very beautiful song that we sing. It was composed in honor of Srila Bhakti-siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, composed by one Vaishnava. One that's a very beautiful thing to contemplate, right? This is this measure what type of being and oh, I'm sorry, the internet's very poor. I'm working on getting a better connection. For tomorrow I should have something better. Apologies. But anyhow, it's a very wonderful thing, right? And it's a way to measure real progress, actually, in Krishna consciousness. How much we are free from that tendency to observe and to criticize the faults of others, right? Because the more that we advance in Krishna consciousness, the more there will be this type of magnanimity within us, generosity. There will be a greater generosity of spirit, right? Overlooking what are the faults of others. And so, that may be something that is a struggle. Like for me, I feel like it's a daily struggle. I'm trying to become more and more conscious of that, that because, it's not that observing faults is bad. That can actually be helpful for us in our own progress. But the issue is how we process those observations, right? Are we making those observations in a spirit of judgment and criticism? Or are we observing those things in a spirit of learning and education and mercy, right? Mercy, the quality of mercy should be in the heart of every Vaishnava. Generally we think of the great Vaishnavas as being merciful. And of course, we normally think of ourselves as wanting to receive mercy, right? But we also have to think about cultivating this mood of feeling mercy for others, right? And that means the spirit of non-judgment, the spirit of affection, right? And appreciating what qualities they do have and giving people the space to grow, not trying to nail them down to these like nitpicky little things, right? So it's something that we can, of course, we want to be receivers of mercy, and we don't really think, oh, who am I to, we don't want to think of ourselves as like benefactors or we can give mercy. But still, we want to try to cultivate that in some way in our hearts, at least in the sense of being non-judgmental, right? And, sometimes we hear Mahaprabhu's teachings summarized in 3 principles. Principles of Vaishnavism. Jive doyaname ruchi, that means to taste the name, to chant the name, to serve the name, right? We're developing our relationship with the holy name and trying to serve the holy name. That is the second thing mentioned. And then Vaishnava Seva, that is the third thing that is mentioned, to serve the Vaishnavas. So it's interesting, right? That this point is, if Mahaprabhu's teachings are condensed into only 3 points, this point is particularly mentioned, Jiva Doya, to be merciful to others. And I feel that included in that is tolerance, right? Tolerance is actually an expression of compassion. There was one article I read of Bhaktivinoda Thakur some years ago, and it helped me to understand that principle in a much deeper way, right? Because when we think of tolerance, it can sound like something a little dry, right? But what's really behind that is a deep spirit of affection and compassion, right? So in that article of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he equated tolerance with compassion. When I read that, it just helped me to understand, so much better. Everything became much more clear. It made sense to me, right? That ultimately it means affection. And our Gurudev also mentioned that point, right? To tolerate with affection. That's what's real Vaishnavism. He said, you tolerate with affection. That's Vaishnavism, right? Vaishnavism always has its positive side, right? So like in the analogy of the tree that's given, right? Tolerance like a tree, tree is tolerating, right? The tree is tolerating so many things, the rain and the cold and the heat being chopped down and so many things, but it's also giving at the same time. The tree is giving fruits and flowers and shade and leaves and oxygen, right? The trees are giving at the same time. The trees aren't just tolerating things. That's already very commendable, but they're also giving. That's Vaishnavism. That's the Vaishnava expression of what is tolerance, right? The spirit of giving, the spirit of affection, compassion. So we all are trying, we all want to try and cultivate that in our daily lives. Compassion, the spirit of compassion can actually help us to overcome so many things. So many, well, anyone, Siananta Shesh also joined us, up here with us. Prabhu. Would anyone like to bring up anything, to share, reflection, or as a question, or anything at all before we close for today? It's a bit of a smaller group. I think the time change has probably thrown some people off. It would be nice if at least they made the time change like the same time, right? But the US does their time change at one time, and then Europe does their time change a few weeks, like almost a month later, you know? Like it was already confusing enough the first time. But anyhow, some dance. I'm very happy to be here with all of you, inspired souls. All right. Well, I'm really, really happy we could. Oh, is someone saying something? Nazar. Yes.
I have a small question.
Mm.
It looks like to be non-tolerant is against devotion. Like this spirit is not compatible to be non-tolerant and to be devotional.
You're saying is being intolerant incompatible with Vaishnavism? Is that what you're asking?
Yes. Very bad sound, interrupting sound.
You're cutting out, Vishaka.
Oh dear. Having lots of technical challenges at the moment. Yeah, my laptop is still trying to repair that. Oh, turn off my video, Nanda Krishna suggesting. Okay, I'm gonna do that. How do I turn off my video? Can you turn off my video? Okay, there we go. Maybe that'll help. Yeah, what is it? We don't have capacity to be tolerant to when we don't have capacity to when we cannot pretend
We can't hear you.
to be. Can't hear me. Oh, 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 terrible. Still can't hear me. Can you hear me now?
Now, yes.
Hello?
Yes.
You can hear?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so we only have so much capacity, right? We cannot pretend to be more humble than we are. We cannot pretend to be more tolerant. We try, right? We try up to the point that we can, but like for example, Haridas Thakur, you know the story of Haridas Thakur. He was beaten. Haridas Thakur was beaten in so many marketplaces, but he was so compassionate about that he pretended to be dead because he wasn't dying, because he's such an exalted soul. He wasn't affected by the beating. And so, but he felt compassionate because these men who were beating him, they were doing their job and they would be punished if they couldn't kill him. So he was so compassionate that he felt sorry. He felt compassion for the people trying to kill him. And so he pretended to be dead. And then they were very happy and they threw him into the Ganga and he was, rescued, I think, by Advaitacharya, and he was fine. That's Haridas Thakur. What a great hearted Vaishnava to have compassion for the people trying to kill him. Right? But we cannot imitate that. We cannot pretend that we are on that kind of a level, So we do the best that we can, and we are making progress in a step-by-step way, in a gradual way, right? In a gradual way, we're making progress. So, it's okay for us to be us. We're meditating on all these things. We're hearing all these things about the great Vaishnavas and the principles of Vaishnavism. And we're feeling that in our heart, and we're going on with our life of service and Shravan and Kirtan. And gradually, there's some progress that's happening, right? But we don't have to force it. We don't have to kill ourselves, to be tolerant. But we do our best. And we have this song, right? I'm sure you know this song. We sing in our temples twice a day. Gurudev Kripa Bindu Diya Koroe Dase Jina Pekati Dina. That song, the translation in some of our kirtan guides is not so clear. But what it's actually saying, it's actually a prayer to Guru to give us the power to be tolerant, to give us the strength to be humble, right? To give us the strength to give honor and to not expect honor in return. It's a prayer. We're praying to our gurus, to the Vaishnavas, to our guardians. Please give me the power to be humble and tolerant and respectful. We're all works in progress, right? As people say, we're all a work in progress. And it's okay that we're not perfect. It's okay that we're not, it's okay that we got a D on the test. We try better next time, right? So some students got an A, some got a B, some got a D or an E or an F. But there's still students in that school. The teacher is still accepting them because the student is trying. So that's our situation. We're students and we're trying, and our teachers have accepted us and they're continuing to teach us. And they also have patience, compassion, and tolerance for us, right? And we are in their care. So yeah, we don't have to forcefully apply and practice all these things. We're trying to stretch a little bit day by day. We're trying our best day by day. But we don't have to forcefully, artificially do that, right? Let it come naturally. Let it come naturally. And we're praying for that grace always. I don't know if is that answering your question, Nazar? I'm not sure if I understood properly. Please let me know.
It's answering my next question.
Oh, really? I answered your next question.
Yes.
But did I answer your first question?
it was a question about mood of Vaishnava. It looks like be intolerant is like opposite to Vaishnava's mood.
Oh, I mean, yes, I would say yes. But I think your question is more than that.
So then I wanted to ask where is this gradation between tolerance and when guru have to make to apply some force to the student to regulate his activities. Because some people they like to teach others, but they are not gurus, and this makes some conflicts.
Wait, you're saying that other Vaishnavas may try to tell us like what we should do or what are we supposed to be doing?
Yes.
Is that what you're right? Yeah, I mean, a lot of people like to give unsolicited advice, right? Do you know that expression? Unsolicited advice means advice that we didn't ask for. Many people like to give advice when we didn't ask them for advice. Many people like to give that. And, sometimes we can just politely listen to them. We cannot pay attention to everyone, right? We may have, a few people who we trust, a few Vaishnavas that we trust, and we want to listen to their opinion. We want to listen to the opinion of our guru and some select Vaishnavas, but we cannot listen to everyone. We listen to those that we trust. And others, we can politely hear them and we go our way. Right? We go our way. But I feel like I'm not understanding properly. Am I answering your question?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it can be difficult, especially like for someone like you. You're like a newcomer. Everybody wants to be your boss. Everybody wants to tell you what to do. That was something Srila Sridhar Maharaj mentioned. He said, when somebody first joins the temple, first joins the mat, he said they have to tolerate two things, dal and gal. And dal means like the cheapest type of food, in the temple may not be so comfortable environments, may not be the best, most opulent food, may not have the nicest mattress on your bed. So you have to tolerate something in the circumstances. And then the second thing, gal. Gal means that others are going to get on your case. Everyone's going to try and be your boss. Right? That's a natural thing. It's we're in this world, we're dealing with humans. It's a natural thing. And you could say it's a part of our training that we have to humbly tolerate that. We don't have to pay attention to everyone. We don't have to listen to everyone. But we can just be peaceful, let them speak. We can give a polite nod of the head. Okay, thank you. But we don't have to take them seriously. We don't have to take them seriously. Just give them a little respect to make them happy. And we go on our way. So you don't have to let it worry you too much. Don't let it bother you too much. It's just a part of the boot camp, the Vaishnava boot camp, the training camp of Vaishnavism. So, and you can select in your heart who you do listen to, who you do follow, who you do trust. You have your own free will to do that. And others, you can be polite. Be just to keep the peace in the environment. Give them some honor. What is the problem, as Gurudev would say?
One more question on this topic.
Yeah.
Maybe it's
Yes.
obvious, but I want to ask about root guidance. I mean, sometimes people say that you must apply force to yourself to do what is correct, like overcome
Mm,
your ego. But
mm,
as I understand Gaudiya Vaishnavism, the main source of each um, wish of each deed must be like affectionate guidance. Like, for example, I
mm,
know I have some affection to the guru, like from my heart,
mm,
and he wishes
mm,
good luck for me and ask what to do. And then I force myself, not because
mm,
it's a rule, but because of
mm,
my love to guru, like this.
mm, mm.
And
Yes, yes, I would say absolutely. Yes. And and for myself, that is definitely the case, you know. I mean, I was speaking earlier, you know, about like following the law, but underneath that, you're right, is the connection with Guru, you know, and for myself, there's the feeling of a relationship with Srila Govinda Maharaj, you know, and feeling his love and affection and wanting to follow, you know, his will, wanting to please him. I would say that's definitely fundamental um, to our practice of Vaishnavism. Yes, that is higher level Vaishnavism actually to be able to do with affection. That's really how we are trying to practice. Yeah, there was one talk that Gurudev gave, and it was published in Revealed Truth, where he was speaking about this, and he was saying that we are trying to follow the principles and regulations of Vaishnavism with the spirit of affection. And he was saying how when he first joined the mission, it was so austere in the temple, you know, many things were difficult because of that. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj was also very, very strict, very strict. And Gurudev said, but he never felt that he was living a very austere life because he simply felt the love and affection of Srila Sridhar Maharaj. You know, and that, you know, we were following the rules with the spirit of affection. So it did not feel like a great austerity. Yes, that is true. That is true. It's a very good point. And that's real Krishna consciousness with the element of free will and love and affection. That's really what Krishna consciousness is about. For sure. I won't disagree with that.
I will maybe clarify that there is like an opposition to this when there is a truth, there is a clever, like intelligence must control the mind because it's truth, because it's in scriptures. Like it's not
Yeah.
like from the heart, but because it's correct. And I'm
Mm.
thinking, what is better way to understand how to feel motivation, how to search
Right.
good.
Right. You know, in Srimad Bhagavatam, there's that pastime, right, with Mother Jashoda, and you know when she has to tie Krishna up because Krishna stole the butter, and Krishna's been very naughty, and so Mother Jashoda has to discipline him, and so she chases after him. She finally catches him, and then she tries to tie him up. But we hear that the rope is always 2 fingers too short, right? She pulls so much rope. She collects so much rope and she's trying to tie Krishna up. but it always comes up 2 fingers too short. And then finally, you know, when she's really at the point of exhaustion, you know, she's sweating and her hair has come undone and her makeup is smearing. Then finally, Krishna allows her, Krishna allows her to tie him, right? Right? He's allowing her to tie him with her love, actually. And so there's an explanation, there's a very nice explanation that's given by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, where he claims that those 2 fingers, they represent these 2 points. One point is the effort of the devotee, the endeavor of the devotee, right? That the devotee is making effort from their side to approach Krishna. They're showing how serious they are, how sincere they are in their approach to Krishna. And then from the other side, the other point is Krishna's mercy, Krishna's affection, Krishna's mercy. And so, yes, you know, there is that element of, you know, there's that debate, right? About what is Sharanagati. Is Sharanagati like the monkey or is it like the cat, right? You've probably heard about that, you know, like the baby kittens being carried by the mother in the mouth, right? Doesn't have to make any effort. But then the baby monkey has to hold on. And so in the Ramanuja Sampradaya, there's a debate. What is Sharanagati? Is it like the monkey or is it like the kitten? And we say it is more like the monkey, actually, that we have to make some effort. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he said that in the later stage, when we are more advanced, then it will be more like the kitten. When we are already surrendered, we have connected with the Lord, we have surrendered our whole self, we are fully in the Lord's care, we don't have any ego or any separate interest, then we can be carried by the will of the Lord. But in our current stage, because we've actually taken ourselves away from the Lord, then we have to, in a sense, we are fighting with our own self because we are our own enemy, right? Our mind's our enemy, our intellect is our enemy, our ego. So in a sense, we're fighting with our own self. And so, yes, I would say it's like a dance. It's a difficult thing actually to properly understand because I feel like there's like an interplay. There's an interplay between our own effort, our own endeavor, and also depending on mercy, depending on grace. Both of these things are there. And so I feel like I just recently wrote an article about this. I can send it to you. Maybe it will help you. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it can be helpful in some way. But that there are these 2 elements. We are making the effort, but we also understand that ultimately it's grace, right? But we're making some effort to show the Lord that we're serious. We know that we can't do it by our own effort. You know, it's just like chanting on our beads. You know, we cannot actually chant right now. But by doing that, we're showing the Lord, we're calling out to the Lord, help me, please come. I don't have any ability to chant. To approach you, and I'm saying to you, please help me. Right? And so many of these practices on their own, they might be very meaningful, but they are a way for us to call out to the Lord, to pray for his mercy, to show him that we are serious. So yes, both sides are there. You know, it's a difficult thing. We're making the effort, but we're also depending on mercy. We're also depending on mercy. And yes, our effort is also based on affection, right? As you pointed out, that element is also there. And overall, somehow or other, we're just going on. You know, somehow, sometimes leaning a little more this way, sometimes a little left, sometimes a little right, you know, sometimes a little forward, sometimes a little back, but we're going on. And at a certain point, I also believe everything becomes, and also find our groove, you know, and there will be an element of intuition that, you know, we have a stronger connection with Guru, right, with Vaishnava, with Mahaprabhu. We feel this inner connection, and that will guide us, right? And sometimes we may feel we're putting our effort. Other moments we're feeling helpless. Oh Lord, please guide me. Please direct me, right? Those moments of helplessness will also come. And then we're showing our effort also when that guidance comes. So there's an interplay, I feel. There's an interplay between all of these things, you know, the mood of helplessness, the mood of surrender, and our own effort, our own endeavor. Inconceivably almost, all of these things are intertwined. That's my feeling on this now, you know. Maybe someone else can give a much better answer. But it's a tricky thing because, yeah, some of these things, they seem contradictory in a sense. I don't know if any of that is helpful to you.
Actually, you mentioned that on higher levels, the cat school maybe, and it was something new for me because I had some small conflict with. I understand this monkey school stuff; it's good, but if on higher levels there is possible like cat style, it's
Right.
more full picture.
Yes, that I appreciated that Srila Maharaj, he harmonized that in one place. He harmonized those 2 points by saying that, yes, in a higher stage, it can be more like the kitten, right? Because our heart is more open. We are clean. Our consciousness is clean. So we can directly hear the Lord's will, and we can purely act as an instrument of the Lord. There's no like block in between, right? So we can be carried by the will of the Lord. But in our current stage, because we have all these layers of conditioning, right? We have these layers that are covering us. And so that those are like filters, right? All these filters that are in the way between our relationship with the Lord, right? So, if because of that, there's more emphasis on putting in more effort in this current stage, right? But at a higher stage, it will be different. That we are pulled by the sweet will of the Lord, right? There's no inner resistance. There's no inner resistance anymore, and it's a stream. It's a beautiful stream and flow. We may sometimes get some touch of that, some feeling, but then the clouds, they come again. Obstruction is there. Sometimes the consciousness becomes more open, right? Then other times it is closed. So yes, I mean, what is Krishna consciousness at this stage, and what is Krishna consciousness at a higher stage? Yes, those are different things.
And also, it looks like this specific line of Vikar Maharaj and others is like magnetizing people who have affectionate, who is attracted by affection, who is not attracted by affection. They like, no, we're not interested in this. I always was wondering why some people, they understand what we're talking about, they maybe read something, but they don't have any attraction. I was wondering why. But if they just don't want to follow the heart, maybe.
I mean, there are different stages, right, of understanding. And, you know, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he gives that overview of the 4 motivations of every human being, right? The lowest is fear. The next motivation is gain or prospect, right? Gaining something for ourselves. Then the third is duty. And the fourth is love. So all of these things apply in the world of religion and our theistic culture. So some people, they may be more at the level of duty. That's what makes sense to them, right? And the motivation of love and affection, that may not make so much sense to them. But that's actually a more refined understanding of spiritual culture, right? Being motivated. And that's really what Krishna consciousness is about. That's actually like part of what makes Krishna Bhakti something unique. That's what Srimad Bhagavatam is celebrating, right? From the first page, right? In the first verses of Bhagavatam, Vyasadeva is making that point. This is something different now. This is pure religion based on love, right? This is at a different level now. But not everybody is going to be able to understand that, right? And so persons like that, they can be motivated by something else, and that's also good for them. They're motivated by duty. That's also a good thing. And when they're ready, then they can also appreciate the principle of love. Right? But yes, for many people, you know, may sound, of course, there are many who really appreciate it, but for some people, they think it sounds like wishy-washy or sentimental. But for us, it is reality. That is actually the reality of what this is. Well, I'm very happy you brought up all these points, Nazar. Very nice points. Yeah. Thank you very much for sharing all of those things. And maybe we'll stop there for today. And I promise I'll come in with a better internet connection next time. Okay, we'll close there. Thank you all so much for your good company, your association. I appreciate it so much. Jai Shri Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai, Shri Bhakti Dakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai, all the assembled devotees, sincere seekers Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Jai Gaur Premanande. Wishing you all a happy weekend ahead and see you next time. Dandavad. Jai Gurudev.